Hi, welcome to In the Game Room, episode number 1. I'm Alan, and this is the Game Room. If you watched episode number 0, the sort of intro to this show, I mentioned that there's going to be some long format shows, some shorter shows, some with guests, some without. This one here is just me. I just wanted to kind of get the ball rolling and get doing this on a semi-regular basis. It's going to be a fairly short one. I'm guessing 15 minutes when it's all edited. Trying out a different microphone today. The other one was fine. It was a great microphone, but actually I kind of felt like it was kind of up in my face the whole time. So maybe this little guy here is going to work a little better. So let's get down to it. I've got a product I want to tell you about that I've used a couple of times. I'm looking forward to using a lot more in the future because it's really pretty cool. They're called battle mats, and they're made by cigarboxbattle.com. And rather than describe them, I'll just kind of show you. It's going to be a little tough here. Maybe I'll post up some still pictures. But these are cloth battle mats that are printed on. Let's see what that looks like. So you can see they've got roads and hedgerows and green stuff and fields. And they're cloth. So you can just wad them up and put them away when you're done using them. You can take paper, scrunch it up, put it down on your table, and then put the mat over the top, and then you'll get some sort of rolling terrain. So they're really cool. These are very cool for taking places. If you're going to a friend's house to play, going to a convention or something like that, and you don't want to take like my boards here, which are rigid MDF boards. They're fine for here. I love them, but they're a real pain in the ass to transport somewhere else. So if you want something you can transport, this will go in your suitcase if you're going to a convention, in another city. So that one I just showed you was they call it Europe, number 102. And they come in different scales. They make one that's a 10 to 15 millimeter scale, which I think is fine for 6 millimeter. And then they make a larger one that's 25 to 28, I believe. But I think the 10 to 15 works fine for 6 millimeter. Here's another one. Like I said, I'll probably mix in some still photos here so you can see these. But this one here is called Desert with Roads, and that's pretty much what it is, desert with roads. And that one is number 103. They're about $70 each, this size. They make different size ones. These ones are about 4 feet by 6 feet. And like I said, they're around $70 each. They're not terribly cheap, but they're not too expensive either. They're very well done. The printing is really nice. The edges are all folded over and sewn, so they're not going to fray, I don't think. They're going to stand up to lots of use. So I really like them. I've used them in a little bit of play testing I've done here at home. I haven't taken them on the road yet, but I think in February there's a convention in LA that I'm going to. Well, I don't think I'm going. I know I'm going. I have a table there. But I think I'm going to take these with me, or at least one of them, and run some games so I don't have to bother transporting rigid boards to the convention site. So there they are. Called battle mats. You can just Google that, or you can go to cigarboxbattle.com, and there's a link there to buy them. They have all kinds. They even have stuff for sci-fi games, space, snow scenes, all kinds of different stuff. Beachheads, really cool stuff. So check out battle mats. I really like them. They didn't send me these. I didn't get them free. I paid for them, and I like them. So there you go. Second thing I want to talk about is a game system that I use. 36 years ago now, GDW and GHQ released a game called TAC Force, TACFORCE. You can still find it on eBay if you're lucky, but there aren't very many copies left. It was released, as far as I know, once and then never again. I'm not sure why. I think it's a pretty good system. I like it. It's what I learned to play modern Micro Armor on. The game was designed specifically for Micro Armor because it was a joint project with GDW and GHQ, and GHQ makes Micro Armor. So they worked with them to make the game. It's a easy game to play, I think. It has a lot of rules which are optional, so it can become sort of as intense as you want, or it can be as simple as you want. The game is very basically based on cards, vehicle cards. Hope you can see this. They have two sides to them. They have the sort of attacking side and the defending side, and the cards overlap each other, and you cross-reference numbers, and you get percentages to hit and things like that. Very simple, I think, and very fast. So anyways, 1980, I bought this game. I loved it, but I immediately saw a little bit of a problem in that there were only a certain number of vehicle cards included. And the ones that were included were the U.S. vehicles of that time, 1980 and before, not all the way back to World War II, but sort of Cold War era U.S. vehicles, and then Cold War era Russian Soviet vehicles, and that was it. So if you wanted to play the British, the French, the German, anyone else, Israelis, well, you're just SOL. You couldn't do it because the cards weren't part of the game. The other issue with the game was the most modern vehicle in the game was on the Russian side the T-72 and on the American side the M60A3. There was a card for something they called XM1, which was the experimental version that led to the M1. So there was kind of an M1 Abrams, but not really. And that's where it ended. So as new vehicles entered service in real life, of course, they did not enter service in this game. It was sort of stuck in the Cold War. So immediately I wanted to do something about that. I was playing a game while I was in the Army. I was in Oklahoma, and I was playing a game with a friend of mine, and he was a real big fan of the Argentinian TAM tank, a TAM. And he said, boy, wouldn't it be really cool if I had a miniature of the TAM and we had a card for it and I could actually use it in the game. And immediately something clicked in my head, and I thought, well, why don't I make that happen? Why don't I make cards for vehicles as they become available? So that started a project which I named TAC II, T-A-C and number 2. So it's basically TAC Force version 2. And this project that was born at that time was basically me updating the data, adding new vehicles, and sort of keeping the game up with modern times. And I've quite literally been doing that for over 30 years. Now I have quite a collection of data, and just a few years ago I decided it was finally time to share that with other people if they're interested in having this information. So I made a website called tac2game.com, and at tac2game.com you can download all of the vehicle data cards for all the updated vehicles. You can even update the rule book itself if you don't own the rule book, because like I said, it's been out of print for 36 years. Not many people have it. I contacted GHQ several years ago and told them about this project I was working on, and I told them that I wanted to take the rule books for TAC Force and rewrite them into one new book and release that for free, not for profit, to anybody that wants it. And they were completely fine with that, so that's what I've done. I've released the rule book. It's a 100% rewrite, but it's based on the same system as TAC Force, and it's available in one book. And you can download the PDF for free at tac2game.com. You can print the book yourself. You can send it off to one of the online printing houses and have them print and bind it. Or I've already done that with about a dozen copies, and I've made them available for my cost, not a penny more. You can contact me if you're interested in picking up one of those. But like I said, this is not a project that I've done for profit, so I'm not interested in selling anything. But if you want one, and you want one of the ones I printed, we'll make that happen. So So that's what TAC II is. It's a modern war game for miniatures. Has vehicles right up through tomorrow, kind of. Right here is the Russian T-14 Armada, a vehicle that was first seen in the world last year and hasn't even been fielded yet. So it's right up to date. The game system itself, one of the main changes I made from the original TAC Force is the original TAC Force was for micro armor only, and all ranges, distances, speeds, and everything were measured in inches. Everything in my system is in meters, so it's completely scale independent. Whatever scale you want to play is fine as long as you have some means of measuring. Like I've made these measuring sticks for myself that are marked off in 2 inches equals 100 meters. I also went to a fabric store and bought a piece of ribbon and made a much longer tape that I've marked off, and every 2 inches is 100 meters. You can do the same thing for 15 millimeter, 20 millimeter, 28 millimeter, just the increments are going to be a little longer for each one. And I'll leave that up to you as far as what ground scale you want to use. But I use, in 2/85 scale, I use 2 inches equals 100 meters, or an inch equals 50, whatever you want to call it, same thing. So that's what TAC II is. I just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention. And those of you who know what it is and have been following it and downloading the rules and the cards and stuff, I want to give you a real quick update on what I've done lately with some new cards. These are all new cards here. I recently added, first off I did all of the Cold War US vehicles. For people that don't own the original TAC Force game but still want those vehicles, those cards are online now. Updated with the new everything in meters instead of inches. I've added the Leopard 2A6, the Leopard 2A7. I had a Russian T90 card, but I've updated it to include the AT-11 sniper missile because the T90 can fire ATGM through its main gun, and that information now is on the card here. As I said before, I added the Russian T-14 Armada card. There's a French MBT that I added that I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name because I know nothing in French is pronounced the way it's spelled. So it's A-R-I-E-T-E, and that's one of their main battle tanks. That card is online now. So you can find all these new cards at tac2game.com. You can find the rules there, some charts you need, things like that. Once you download everything and print out what you need, all you'll need is some percentage dice, something to measure with, and off you go. And maybe a battle mat. So that's the TAC II news. The third thing I want to talk about in this little broadcast here is something I just touched on a second ago in a way, and that's ground scale. People that are new to wargaming with miniatures can get confused by ground scale. Ground scale is different from miniature scale. This tank here is 2/85 scale. Some people call it 300 scale, some people call it 6 millimeter, whatever you call it. It's micro armor, it's 2/85 scale. When we game in this scale, we don't use distances that are 2/85 scale because those distances are much too great. There's an M1 out here. Let me grab it. The M1 Abrams in one 1-minute turn can move approximately 1,100 meters in that period of time in real life. 1,100 meters in actual 2/85 scale would be 154 inches or about 13 feet. Much bigger than this, even this large gaming table here. This gaming table is 8 feet long this way. So if we actually used a ground scale that matched the scale of that vehicle, this vehicle could move further, it could move off the end of the board. And it could fire much, much further than that, 3 or 4 times that much, or about 3 times that much, reliably, about 3,000 meters. So it could fire about almost 40 feet in this scale. That's my dog. So we don't use actual scale for ground scale. because it's just not practical in wargaming. So we have to come up with a ground scale that has been compressed to something that's workable. In 2/85 scale or micro armor, 6mm, whatever you want to call it, most people like to use a scale of 50 meters equals 1 inch, or as I call it, 100 meters equals 2 inches. Same thing. And then you just make a scale like this, a stick or a ribbon or whatever, that's marked out every 2 inches is 100 meters. It works out perfectly for me and my game boards, my rigid game boards, because they're 20 inches square, which in that ground scale is 1 square kilometer. So for people playing war games in different scales, I have a guideline here that I like to use for making ground scales specific to different scale miniatures. If you're using 6mm, 2/85, 1/300 scale, micro armor, whatever you want to call it, I like to use 2 inches equals 100 meters. If you're using 15mm miniatures, I like to use 5 inches equals 100 millimeters. 100 meters, pardon me. If you're using 20mm miniatures, somewhere around 7 inches equals 100 meters works pretty well. And then if you're getting real big and getting into 28mm miniatures, you'll probably want to use something around 10 inches equals 100 meters. That's getting pretty big though. If you're using modern vehicles like an M1 tank, it's going to fire, well, I don't want to do the math right now, but it's going to fire really far, even at 10 inches equals 100 meters. So you've got to come up with a scale that works for you. Some game systems really crunch down the scale a lot, and I have a little bit of a problem with that because it just starts to get a little cartoonish. I was recently watching a video online. It was a tutorial about a 15mm war game where an M1 was firing and his target was 18 inches away. Guy took out his tape measure, measured 18 inches, and he said, "All right, that's 18 inches. That's a long range for the M1." And a 15mm miniature, if you can imagine it, something about that big, firing about that far, just doesn't feel like long range to me. It feels like very, very close range to me. But that's the way that rule system works, and it works for them, and perhaps it's a lot of fun to play. I don't even know. But to me, it didn't work. I would like to see a 15mm M1 firing 5 or 6 feet across the table and then saying, okay, now we're getting into some long range. But whatever works for you, whatever works for your game system is what you need to do. The main point is the ground scale is different from the vehicle scale and the building scale, the terrain scale. And it can be a lot different or it can be a little different. It's up to you. And if you have the room and you want to go outside and play on the beach or something, you can play 20mm miniatures at 1-to-1 ground scale. You're going to be firing an M1 tank, several hundred feet probably, but if you can do it, go for it. You have my blessing. That sounds like fun. But if you're going to play indoors on a terrain table, you're going to need to adjust your ground scale to something that's practical. So that's the difference between ground scale and vehicle scale. So that's it for today. I wanted to talk about the battle mats from Cigar Box. I wanted to talk about TAC II a little bit, and then I wanted to talk about ground scale a little bit, and I think I've covered all 3 of those. Please feel free to comment below if you have any suggestions for me for show topics for future shows. If you have any questions for me about anything I talked about, if I've made any mistakes, which is highly likely, feel free to correct me. Just be nice about it. If you like what I'm doing, tell me. If you think I'm completely full of crap, tell me. Again, just be nice about it. Anything else? If you have any questions, I'm going to put links to battle mats in the description. I'm going to put links to TAC II in the description. And if I can find the article I wrote on Gamecraft's Facebook page about ground scale, I'll put a link to that as well. It's probably buried pretty deep in the archives of Facebook, so I may not be able to find that. So there you go. That's it for this time. The next time, maybe not the next time, but very soon, there's going to be somebody sitting next to me, a guest host, and I'm hoping he'll be here from time to time. His name is Chris. He's sort of a newer gamer. I'm not going to call him a novice, but he's newer to gaming. So he'll be able to bounce a lot of questions off me, and I'll be able to go back and forth with him, and it should be real good. Rather than me just sitting here spitting words at you, it'll be more of a conversation, so that'll be good. He doesn't really live in the area, so getting out here is something that happens about once a month. But I'm looking forward to the next time he's out here and we can do one of these shows together. Again, any comments, suggestions, ideas, questions, put them below in the comments, and I will definitely do my best to answer them all. You can always email me directly if you want at Allen, ALLEN, @gcmini.com. That's always the best way to reach me, in case I go several days without looking at YouTube or Facebook or whatever. But I'm always checking my email, so that's a good way to reach me. So thank you very much for watching. Subscribe to this, and we'll be doing a lot more shows in the future, and I hope you enjoyed this goofy little show. Thank you.